Well, I think since we got a small group, we could do a quick round of introductions just to see where everybody's calling in from. And then we'll end with you, Ryan, and Ian, and then you guys can take it away and jump into a little overview of what you're working on and some of your growing systems, and then open it up for questions and any other updates if that sounds good. Um, I can start off. I'm Max Lyons calling in from Kodiak, working with a small nonprofit here called CALI, which is the Kodiak Archipelago Leadership Institute, and we help support a network of eucalyptic grown farms around the Kodiak region. Um, One here in Kodiak and then spread out throughout the villages in the region. So doing soil farming, hydroponics, various sizes and scales, some Dutch buckets, NFT systems, bubble buckets too. In connexes, tabletop systems, a little bit of everything, and then get into mariculture as well. So a little bit, that's I get to support all those areas. So really look forward to hearing what you guys have to say today, and glad you're on the call. So I can pass it over to Brett.
Thank you, Max. I'm Brett. Calling in from Anchorage, Midtown. A shift lead at Alaska Seed to Change. We're a youth vocational training program where we usually have a hydro system, but our seeding's kind of fallen down, so we're getting that replaced. So we paused the hydro system, but we're focusing on our outdoor tasks now, so it's nice. I'll pass it over to Marissa.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Marissa McCassin, and I work for the Cooperative Extension Service, specifically for the Tribes Extension Program. So my job is to work closely with the Aleutian Pribilof Islands Association to support people growing, preserving, cooking food at home in the Aleutian Islands. Like I think everyone heard me over say that I was supposed to be getting to Sandpoint this week to do some classes, but we're exploring hydroponics as another option because it's windy and hard to grow things outside in the Aleutians. I'm also an AFPC board member, so Mel Sykes normally kind of runs this group, but I help report back to AFPC on kind of what we talk about, and I'm super grateful for you guys coming on and chatting about what you're doing down south today. So nice to meet you. And then Nina, I think you're the last one before our presenters.
Okay, so Jemai, everybody. I get it all the time, but my name's pronounced Nina. That's okay. And I'm the farm and facilities manager here for Native Village of Afognak. We have Moloch Farms, and that's we have it in the Connex container. And our council is looking to expand, so we're going from there.
Well, I'll step in. My name is Ryan Smith. I'm the local foods coordinator and greenhouse manager for HIA in Hoonah. Um, I've been here for almost going on 3 years now. Been a long time in the making to get this project to where we're at now, and so it's really excited to talk about it with you guys. And I was actually just gonna let Ian kind of give the whole backstory because he's been working on this project for I think 8 years now, and finally came to fruition. So yeah, introduction for Ian.
Yeah, morning. Or is it still morning? No, it's definitely not morning. Good afternoon. Yeah, I'm Ian Johnson. I run the environmental department for Hoonah Indian Association, and I also work through the Sustainable Southeast Partnership as a community catalyst. I don't know if that's an entity y'all have heard of before, but it's capacity and collective impact network here in Southeast Alaska. Um, yeah, so the greenhouse in Hoonah has been a vision for quite a while. I don't know exactly how, I won't go into too deep, but like we started kind of laying the groundwork in the community in 2017 about what people would like to see, and we we started looking at the biomass models that Prince of Wales is using to heat their greenhouses and do them year round, and so that was sort of the model we started to pursue, having a greenhouse that could operate year round with a woody boiler attached to it. We did a lot of feasibility work from that point on, looking at how that system might integrate. And we do the greenhouse that we've built now does have a biomass boiler attached to it, but it's not the kind of large scale system we had imagined. We had thought that we might have like 7 buildings attached to a boiler, and that the greenhouse would just be one of those facilities. But right now it's just a greenhouse on its own independent system. We Yeah, so I mean, we kind of determined that we wanted to go with a commercial scale, operation. Hoonah is pretty well, I guess we're lucky that we're pretty, closely positioned to Juneau and some other markets, and we do have a lot of cruise ship traffic here. So we have some like outlets beyond Hoonah to sell to. So we figured like that scale would be appropriate. Um, and so the greenhouse is 30 by 60, and we're still, we just planted our first crop. So it's amazing to think it's been since 2017. Um, we do, I guess I didn't pull up these links ahead of time, but I can grab a couple. But like we've kind of documented the process over the years on our website, which is um, just nice benchmarks to have. I'll drop one link in here. Um, let's see if I find some of the earlier ones. But yeah, it has been a pretty community driven process throughout it. And I think there's a lot of excitement now that we have it in place. So yeah, I know Ryan's gonna talk about like the actual systems that we're gonna be growing in there. Sounds like everyone's pretty familiar with um, the types of systems already. So that'll be good. I'll just hit really quick the other food growing things we're doing here in general. Like we've been growing potatoes for 4 years. We've been focusing on the Tlingit potatoes around here, that Maria's potatoes. Like last year we grew about 125 pounds of them. We get about a 5-to-1 return. So like we planted about 4 gallons of seed potato, and I think we got 25 gallons of product. So that was good. We're upgrading that site this year with a high tunnel. So hoping to boost production up there and like actually start to do some true food security meeting things with that, as well as other root veggie and cabbage, and then cabbages and some other crops too that we might be able to produce up there now with the extra heat and sunshine. And then last year into this year, we built a root cellar, and so which is a little bit unique for our climate. You don't have permafrost or anything like that. It's just 90 inches of rain, and we we buried a Connex, it's 20-foot Connex, and insulated it on the outside and then buried it. And so that's going to be a learning curve, but we're trying to reduce our energy costs for storage. We pay about 65 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity here, which is high by any standard, even for Alaska. And so, running a freezer is not really very economical. So as much as we can do in a root cellar, that's what we're going to seek to do with that. And yeah, I don't know. I guess like maybe the last thing I'll say with whatever questions people have, but I guess we kind of view the greenhouse in like 3 different tiers, or like 3 different pieces. Like one is just the food production side, food security, you know, food security and local resource control, sovereignty. And so there's that production side. Then there's like the economic side. We're establishing a farmers market in Hoonah as part of the greenhouse and trying to just create some local entrepreneurship. So we'll have our first market pretty soon, hopefully by May, I guess, May or early June. Try to get that first market going, and that's going to be a opportunity for us to directly market and sell what we're producing. And then, but it's a really good opportunity for low income families to access food at cost. So through SNAP benefits, like registered farmers markets can have some really good perks, like reimbursement to your cards for qualifying purchases. So we're trying to get food into low income households through that farmers market as well. And then the last piece of kind of the greenhouse project is the education side of it. So we've initiated a internship program, and through some funding from a foundation, and then we'll be continuing to, like, we've already integrated the school pretty heavily with everything we've been doing, but getting kids and youth in there to learn how to grow, and maybe someday Ryan will train himself out of a job. Um, but yeah, so I guess that's the 3 pieces: the production side, the economic side, and the education side. So yeah, I don't know. Any questions about any of that?
Curious, what kind of biomass are you guys using?
Wood.
Yeah, so this is a cordwood system.
Okay.
Yep. This, when we were scoping it at a larger system, it was going to be 7 buildings and it would have been chipped up hog fuel. But this, yeah, with this single system, it's a cordwood.
Yep. So I was just gonna go over some of the equipment and some of the hurdles that we had to get where we're at now. Yeah, the inline floor, that was awesome. The crazy thing about the cost for this greenhouse was most of the cost went to contractual, so it's like paying the contractors. But yeah, so the structure went out last year. We still are in the process of the biomass heater being hooked up. But as of right now, we're running propane as our backup heaters. Just to be able to keep the greenhouse warm at night. Surprisingly, even in Southeast and how cloudy it is, this greenhouse gets up in the high 80s throughout the day, and it's insane. Like I have to open the ridge vent constantly. I don't know how I'm wearing a hoodie. But yeah, so what we're doing, what you see behind me, is that we have our aeroponic towers. We're gonna have total of 60 of them. When we originally going to do this, we were only going to get 50, but we realized that we have the space and more grow sites. With the 50, that was going to be 2,700 grow sites. So imagine if we're only growing lettuce, that's 27 heads of lettuce that we'd be harvesting, 2,700 heads of lettuce we'd be harvesting every month. We're obviously going to have a more diverse profile. As Max said, we're going to also have beta buckets. So we're going to have 48 beta buckets with 2 vine crops per beta bucket. So we're going to have close to 100 vine crops. And like Ian was saying, with the hydroponics being as difficult as it is for root crops, we're just going to focus on growing our root crops in our community garden with the new high tunnel. Some of the other cool things, I don't want to bounce around too much, but I can give you guys a quick walkthrough if you want. We have the wet wall. That's and excuse me, we're still under construction. We have the wet wall. We're gonna have all of our aeroponic towers. We have oscillating fans to be able to help with cross pollination. We also have I think Max will get a kick out of this. We have the dosatron system, where this can be all automated. So all of our feedings will be gravity fed through our reservoir. And it's going to be able to feed all of our tanks and our reservoirs. And let's see, I do have to gloat with our plumbers because they did a phenomenal job with this plumbing work. Phenomenal job, and that's for our radiant floor heat with glycol. And then I am going to show off one of the coolest things I think is our microgrow controller. So basically everything that is in that greenhouse, the ridge vents, the shade cloth, anything that can be controlled, even with my pH up and down dosage, all that's going to be able to be controlled by my phone. So I can actually be able to step away and feel confident that I know what's going on exactly in this greenhouse at all times. And yeah, some of the new additions, we have our air curtain that just came in. So, with the cross contamination with bugs, we're always trying to prevent, because it's always easier to prevent the bugs than it is to get rid of them after you have them. And so that's pretty frustrating. But yeah, I guess one last thing is that we have these photobio. They're 680 watt LED lights, full spectrum, and it's kind of insane. So it's funny because every time the students come in with the greenhouse, the lights on, they just cover their eyes because it's so intense. But that is with the lights on. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. Really excited about this summer and our beta buckets to come in. And yeah. So you guys have any questions, please fill in. But really excited. Like I said, it's been a long time coming, and I feel for Ian because he's been waiting for this since 2017. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Ryan, just so you know, the lights are way brighter in real life than they looked over your phone.
Oh, really? Bummer. Lame. Yeah.
Did you say those lights have controls too? Do they work with sensors for cloud coverage or it's manual?
Yeah. No, yeah, we have a weather station. I guess I could have showed you that too. We have a weather station. Shoot, I could walk over there if you guys want to see the biomass heater too. I'm sure Max might be interested in that. But yeah, we have a weather station. So yeah, it's all solar. It's gonna be able to control with the lights. Our ridge vents are gonna be able to open and close depending on our wind variables and our temperature. Yeah, we have our weather station, Max. It's up there. So on top of our greenhouse. And then this is our heat master biomass heater.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
That's just for heat, correct? So no electricity.
Yep. Yep. It's just for the heat, and it's going to be pumping the glycol through the radiant floor heats, the radiant floor that we have.
We did a lot of scoping around creating electricity from biomass back in the day. If you ever want to deep dive on that, that's the thing. But you know, it takes a lot of biomass to make produce electricity at scale. So it's economical. It's like I think for us we were scoping can't remember the size of the system at this point. 50 or like almost a megawatt, I guess. Because we were going to provide, it would have to provide at scale for the community. Anyways, I was like 1,000,000 board feet of material a year just to turn that system, which is a lot for our area here on like we don't have really big industrial logging anymore around here. Never well, we did back in 20 years ago, but it's been a long time since we have. Anyways, that kind of volume just isn't really a reality anymore. So
I'm also curious, with that big of a greenhouse, what does labor look like outside of you, Ryan? Like in terms of education, like is it just interns? Do you have other paid staff? Is the education because it's hard to find the right paid staff in a small community? Like I'm curious what that looks like.
I definitely use child labor to help germinate seeds. No, I love it when the students come over. They are a big help. I'm definitely gonna have a lot on my plate, my workload, once we're at full production. But yeah, right now we have 3 part-time interns, and we're planning on getting another intern from Sea Alaska. So we should have 4 interns throughout the summer. Once this does start becoming sustainable, we're gonna just basically, I think, have 2 full-time interns. Once the greenhouse starts generating a revenue at the market. So as of
yeah,
right
that's
now, I would say as of right now, our interns are being paid from that foundation that Ian was talking about.
yeah, that's the hope. Yeah, there's a lot of capacity development we need to do, but we just have to start somewhere. The greenhouse will generate some revenue, so we're hoping that it can at least sustain the growing position, and then the market will also generate revenue, and how much is yet to be seen, obviously, but not just from our direct sales, but from the other vendors that are there too, eventually. And so we need a market coordinator, and we need someone who can coordinate education. These are things we've tried to fund through grants already, but haven't had a whole lot of success. I don't know. I guess I'd be curious from this group if you've had any success with the Native American Agricultural Fund. We tried for that through to fund some of this capacity development stuff we need, but we just got a hard rejection from them. I felt like our application was pretty competitive, but they didn't see it that way. But anyways, yeah, so for now it is the other, I guess the other workforce that Ryan didn't mention it. There's a lot of people in town that are just very interested in just volunteering their time, and like we need to develop that volunteer network yet. But we don't really have funding for other paid positions right now.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that experience is mirrored by a lot of places, but I'm just always curious because when I look at that, it's so impressive. So that's always my first thought.
Yeah, it's going to be a big operation. We're actually tomorrow afternoon are doing our first community introduction to the greenhouse. It'll just be a public meeting down there from 3:30 to 4:30, and I'm expecting turnout to be pretty high. I think there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of people there tomorrow checking it out. So that's probably when we'll start asking people to put their name down on that volunteer list. And
And you'll find there's cycles of when you really need a lot of hand, the planting, everything, harvesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention we had a couple members of our Luke to Grown team jump on too. Kaylee's over in Old Harbor and Duke Delgado's in Uzinki, and then Robbie Townsend is with our the Kodiak Archipelago Leadership Institute. And just to fill you guys in too, Ian and Ryan are with the Hoonah Indian Association. And runs their environmental program. Also catalyst of the Southeast Sustainable Partnership, and then Ryan is the local food coordinator and greenhouse manager. So just to make those connections. But this is really exciting. I can't wait to do a follow-up call too and see how it's going, in a couple months or come this fall and see how everything is played out. What is your
Yeah.
time on construction and finalizing? And
We have a grand opening planned for June 26th. I don't think we're going to have full production by then. I think that we're still going to be missing our extra 30 towers. But the betel buckets will be here, so our vine crops will be growing, and the towers that are behind me will be running as well. So
Yeah, the biomass heater should be done any day, maybe another week or whatever. It just the guy from Juno needs to come one more time and wrap it up. And then that basically ends the construction phase. Like then it's fully turned over to Ryan to. I guess we need to do a little bit more around. Oh, there's some sewer hookup stuff we're still working on, so I guess there's that. But yeah. Yeah, this entire operation has been made possible by a lot of different funders and funding sources. So that's been a pretty interesting thing. I think we had eight or so funders tied into the production of this greenhouse between federal funders, private funders. Yeah, it's a pretty big mix of agencies.
it was a pretty big, without all of that help, we wouldn't have been able to do it. I mean, but I think we just got a final number. It was 850,000 after the contractors and everything for the greenhouse.
This is Duke Delgado at Spruce Island Farms, part of Cali. Now the heat that you have going into your hoop house, what was the cost of that? If you don't mind me asking.
The biomass heater?
Yes.
Oh, the equipment alone was, I think, $16,000, and we got it from Canada. Drove it down.
Yeah, the heater costs that much, and then let's see, I'm trying to think in Prince of Wales, I think they do everything with in-floor heat as well. But it's like the in-floor pour, like that added a lot of complexity to the concrete pour when we did it. We had to lay all the PEX and everything initially. So I don't know what that cost. I do know what the concrete.
It was 80,000.
Yeah, I don't know how much the PEX added to that, or like what what that cost in the.
Because where our hoop houses are, they are on a old airstrip, and it's all gravel. I'm sure it'd radiate the same way, but if I could get something that would, help my greenhouse last longer every year, or even work all year.
There's a grower here who does that. He has a greenhouse where he just buried his pipes underground. And that's pretty simple. I mean, he just has like a regular Fisher wood stove just outside, and then all his pipes are buried underground in the sand underneath the greenhouse. It's just a bare earth greenhouse. And I don't know, like that's fair. That should be fairly cheap to do. I mean, because like the system in general would be your heater box, which of course how big you have it determines how long it's going to burn and how often you got to stoke it. And then you got your reservoir that you're heating, water tank of some kind, and then you have a pump to move your heat through your PEX or your tubing and underground. And so like at, you know, at smaller scales, it's probably, you know, fairly inexpensive, I would think. You know, like a big roll of PEX is not that expensive, a couple $100 or something. And then your pumps, I don't know, I don't even know, but $100 or something, I suppose, for like a decent pump, and then maybe more,
Sorry
maybe
about
around
that.
that. Sounds like a husky. The yeah, and then I don't know. Yeah, so I could ask, that's Dan Fanning, Ryan, who has those under
Mm.
his in-floor heat there in his greenhouse. I like that's sort of the smaller, he has the sort of more smaller scale version of what we have, or like personal scale compared to the commercial scale.
No, because well, I lived in North Dakota for I don't know a few years, and they used a lot of those down there, and I think it's amazing to yeah. I mean, you don't get the dirt in your house, and or even in your hoop house, and the ash and everything, and it heats everything amazingly. And I'd like to get something like that for my hoop houses for the wintertime to extend my growing season.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then I mean I grew up working in a greenhouse and he just heated it. He just heated his greenhouse. I grew up in Minnesota, and like he would heat his greenhouse in the shoulder seasons with a wood stove inside the greenhouse. He didn't have anything tricky like in-floor heat. He just put a wood stove in there and piped it out. And on top of the heat, um, he uh, he got a lot of benefit from the CO2 production too. So um, it could be as simple as that too. Just stoke, depending on how big your hoop houses are. If you're willing to stoke a fire in them, and keep that going, that might cover you too.
Yeah, well, we have two 30 by 50 hoop houses, and they're, I don't know, about 20-25 feet apart from each other. And if we could put something in the middle and run it to both of them, then we could extend our seasons.
Yeah.
And those are, you know, I've seen them. They're amazing. I never got to use one though.
Yeah. And this is something I've only ever, like, I'm just gonna pull it up really quick, or pull up an example, but if you're only looking to extend it during the shoulder seasons, you actually could look at solar thermal too, which then you can just separate yourself completely from the wood stocking and everything. Heat your water passively during the day with your solar thermal, and then pump it through the floor at night. You would get even I lived in Fairbanks for a few years, and up there we could heat a water tank with solar thermal up to like 120 degrees all the way through like November. Even hot. Well, we were getting 100 to 120 degrees out of the tap. That the tank was say at 160 or whatever it was. Solar thermal is actually pretty powerful especially if you got good southern exposure where you happen to be. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's not that much more expensive, and then you don't have to stoke the stove. You're just letting it. Then you just let the sun do its thing, heat your tanks during the day, and then pump your heat during the night. And then at some point, the sun won't do its job anymore. You'll have to shut the greenhouse down for the year. But um, that's probably not a bad route either. And it'd be about the same cost. I remember scoping these things. They're like $5,000 for an array. So, and like I'm guessing a couple arrays would cover you. So, um, it's not any different than the cost of the stove, and then you don't have the constant stoking of it.
Thank you.
I know we visited Mike Arnold over on, he's up in Sterling, and his big thing is just heating at night in the summer to keep that consistent temperature.
Mm.
Not having the temp go up and down from day to night he doesn't extend too much, but and he runs his off of waste cooking oil from the community and like
Mm.
restaurants. So it's cool. He's just got a little heater in his greenhouse and collects all the oil and does that. So there's a lot of cool routes you can do with that. I was curious on nutrients. You guys are going to be using a lot of nutrients for that system. Any plans on sourcing or buying in bulk or companies you're working with?
No, it's the ones that came with from the tower farms. But Ian and I were both talking about this, and we're going to look into trying to do something that's more organic and using our own newts and making our own nutrients here. That's one of the things that we're looking at doing.
Yeah.
Ian just bought his own little hydroponic unit for his front porch, so we're going to try it on his, making the organic nutrients, and then try it on his plants before we go full committed to the little greenhouse.
Yeah. So yeah, I bought this like little 128 grow site little NFT system for the porch for the summer, and we I'm really interested in creating nutrient from kelp. So just cooking it down, cooking it down into kelp tea and then strain it off and use that for my nutrient. I'll probably have to get going with, pre-made, but by later this summer, once I can cook down a batch of kelp, then see how that does. And but yeah, right now I think for the greenhouse, we have about a year's supply. Is that what we?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure that out pretty soon.
Well,
A
you
year's
know
not
what?
that far away.
Here in Ezinki, we are actually becoming kelp farmers too. So keep us in mind.
Yeah.
Are you farming for food or are you farming for
You
fertilizer?
know, we're just beginning. We're gonna start we get our first permit in June, and but I believe we're growing sugar kelp, and we are looking for buyers, and we're starting a co-op in Kodiak. I just got off the meeting with them. That's why I was late. Because they want to make powders and slurries and all different things for different ways to use kelp. So
Yeah,
it's a possibility, and if we could help you out, we'll do it.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, if I could jump in, this is Robbie, and I'm the executive director at Collie. The project the Duke is working on right now is actually something through SEC's Build Back Better, and we're growing out a couple of other species that are currently not farmed at large scale commercially to see if these could be good niche markets for Alaska. So right now in Kodiak, it's really we're hoping to do small scale drying in our communities, and that would go hopefully into food as opposed to the slurry that goes into things like cosmetics and things that you don't eat. So just a little more background. Thanks, to
Cool. Yeah, that's what I was wondering if you were familiar with the mariculture cluster, but it sounds like that's what you're funded through then.
Yeah. And yeah, Collie's actually the liaison down here in the region. So we have a drying research project right now. There's a number of those around the state. And then Duke's other species we're also working on.
Fertilizer is definitely of interest too. And I was going to mention it, if you guys haven't already looked at the Fairbanks Soil and Water website with Mel, she's got some cool resources on how they're making their own. And
I just put the link in the chat.
perfect. Yeah. And it's just like you can kind of use that process and just play around with different feedstocks too and different components to get to that ratio that you need. But yeah, we'll have to keep that in loop on any progress we're all making with sourcing local nutrients, because I know that's something, or at least displacing, they might still need to supplement with some,
Right.
reducing it,
Yeah.
by 75%.
Well, here in Ezinki, my plan is to get off anything that make it all organic, kelp, because we could grow it here, and it's easy enough to do.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to switch the subject, so go ahead.
Oh, I am trying to find a contact, but I've been told I was working with this guy. Sooner or later I'll find his name here in my email. He lives up in the Matsu, and he has told me that if there was a market developed for kelp fertilizer that could be brought to the Matsu, that the demand would be almost unlimited. So I don't know if you've made contact with folks in the Matsu for fertilizer-based kelp mariculture stuff, but I would definitely dig around up there.
If you could find that information for me, please send it to me, or Max could send it to me, because I'd like to know. Because we have a 25-acre farm or kelp farm that well, we get our permit in June, and kelp grows throughout the winter, and any way I can make anything more organic, that's what I'm for.
Marissa, feel free to jump in and I get.
Oh, my question was just, I feel like we've seen one other place that does kind of like hydroponics in a greenhouse, but usually I see more hydroponics in like a container or soil-based systems in a greenhouse. So what made you guys go for mostly hydroponics in a greenhouse, I guess is my question.
A couple of things. That's a really good question. Well, in my background, I've been growing hydroponics since 2013. Started in California in a different industry. Obviously only focus on food now. But the reason why I chose the greenhouse with hydroponics, I'm more comfortable with hydroponics than soil. I also know that it's a quicker turnaround. You get a faster harvest, better yields. But the reason I chose the greenhouse project was because every other time I've ever grown hydroponics in my entire life, I've always used lights and never had the sunshine or the full spectrum. Mostly, I think the reason why we did this and the decision is because we can actually keep the cost down, because you said it was 65 cents a kilowatt hour or something ridiculous. So yeah, in order to keep the cost down and use the summer months, we're not going to know this is completely sustainable until after the first year, because we're going to have to balance our summer months versus our winter months and figure out where our cost ratio is between the seasons.
That's super cool. And I feel like it's going to be a great use case for Alaska, because I think a lot of people have that same problem. And so it'll be super interesting to see kind of what the initial investment is / cost savings over time.
Right.
Yeah, I think in the long run it's going to be cheaper too. It's just more consistent, cheaper. It's I don't know. I've seen a lot of soil-based greenhouses down in Prince of Wales, and I mean they do grow quite a bit of food. But we ever since seeing the Prince of Wales ones, especially in Kaufman Cove, have enormous. It's a 5,000 square foot greenhouse, built by the same company that built ours, and it's all aquaponics, and it's run by the students and the youth. And we toured that greenhouse back for the first time in 2017. I've been back a couple times since then. It actually is struggling right now because of turnover and staffing issues within the school district. But that's when we, we had kind of visioned it as a hydroponics facility before hiring Ryan, and then he had that expertise to boot. So that made it an easy fit to bring that vision to reality. But yeah, they do floating mats in Prince of Wales in Kaufman Cove, and at its peak they were churning out like 500 to 600 heads of lettuce a week, I think. And these days it's not quite that high, but
On the topic of energy, are there any plans to couple with renewable energy systems? Solar, wind, tidal, or just maybe down the line, see how it all.
Yeah, it's a tough one. We have looked into a lot of options. The problem is our peak power is needed in the winter, of course, which is like when, especially solar, is the least efficient. There is a small river next
Mhm.
to it that might give us some run a river opportunity that we need to look at yet. We haven't done that. The only other thing, it's sort of like retying it to renewables, but and this is to be a long ways off, but the tribe and the city are working on like a solar project right now to try to get funding. And if that was funded, which is if that was funded, then I think as our participation in it, we would ask for a reduced rate for operating our businesses. And so even though like the solar bank itself wouldn't be directly powering our greenhouse, it might it'll provide renewables for our community that we could leverage some cost savings from. But the otherwise, the only thing that's ever really been scoped as feasible here is, fish friendly hydros, which we have one here. We have a 30% hydro, other than that we're 60% diesel. Wind is a tough sell here. We just don't get that many days over 9 knots actually, which is sort of the minimum. We installed some new weather stations up on a mountain last year as part of a different project. I'm really curious to see the wind data up on the ridges up there, and we'll see what we get from that. But it wasn't done as a part of an energy feasibility study, but it'll be data we actually have now for the first time ever. So be curious on that. But yeah, renewables it would be great. And because anything we can do to reduce the cost of this operation is just going to make it more sustainable. Just like perspective wise, like for us to keep that big old light bank behind Ryan powered up for 8 hours a day during just the shoulder season. So for 6 months to offset the shorter days, 8 hours a day, that's about $27,000 just to keep that light bank on. And that's just the lights, not to mention all the fans and pumps and all the other electrical draw occurring there. So yeah, electrical cost adds up fast.
Yeah, I can tell you, even years ago, that was in California, my electricity costs were as much as my employees, my nutrients, and any supplies combined. So, I mean, if there's any way that we can reduce that energy cost, that was our main goal. That's why we went with the greenhouse.
Yeah, and I guess for now it just forces you to really dial in how often you're running those pumps and lights and everything, and not using
100%.
so. And the heating too, that takes a big load off. So that'll be great.
Yeah. Propane's expensive.
Is your greenhouse hard-sided, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's polycarbonate and it's double walled, so it has an insulative factor.
That's what we need, because we get a lot of winds here and it tears up our plastic.
Yeah, this one is fully. We did not leave any hoops unjumped through for this one to develop it, I guess, but like I think it's rated for 120-mile-an-hour winds and basically maximum snow loads for our region and everything. Like it's fully spec'd and engineered. Yeah, which is good. It's kind of a pain in the ass to get to do that, but it was worth it, I think.
Sure, but is there a way you can send me what you got?
Yeah, I don't know why not.
And
Yeah.
who built it? Or the company that made it?
Yeah.
It was
It's Gothic
Conley.
Arch.
No,
Right.
Gothic Arch is not the manufacturer. It's Conley.
Oh, Conley, yeah, right. Which is actually out of like Arkansas. Go figure. Long trip to get it up here.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know why not. I can dig those up. I don't think there's anything necessarily sensitive in any of that, so. I don't think it'd be an issue to share it out.
And you said
because we have fruit trees that, they blossom every spring, and then we get our high winds, and then our blossoms are gone.
Yeah,
And I'd like to get them into, I don't know, green, the hoop house, greenhouse, whatever you want to call it, just so we could produce fruit.
Yeah, and actually on that note, one of the things I'm excited about, I haven't done yet, and I'm sure most of you guys already know, like there was 6 methods of hydroponics, but now they have the 7th method, which is I think I'm always butcher his name, the Kraken method, which basically just stagnant water, nutrient water. You have your roots have that oxygen level. And so one of the things that I want to do is like our reservoir tanks A and B over here, a root trash can, because I definitely want to have a citrus tree in the corner and let that thing grow for the next couple of years with its own float valve to be able to keep the water level where it needs to be. But I think that'd be pretty awesome. It'd be my first hydroponic tree, you know.
That sounds awesome. You have to keep me in the loop.
I will.
what is the doser? Was it Dosatron? Is that the brand or?
Mhm. Yeah, that's the brand, and that just uses water pressure. The other thing that we have with the controller is the Blue Lab. I'm sure you know about Blue Lab. Microgrow, the controller is actually built from Blue Lab, so it's a sister company. But they have also, your pH or ppm readers on there, so that if my reservoir does fluctuate, it'll be able to dose the pH on its own from the controller. I know the Dosatron sounds like a Transformers movie or something, but
The cool name. It makes a
yeah, it
difference
is.
in the name. And I know something we've experienced. Make sure you got a good Wi-Fi connection with some of those. Or we've had
Oh,
ones
yeah.
where if it goes offline, it'll throw the systems off. So making sure your essential systems can still function with or without internet, or that you have steady connection. Because I know that's something experienced. But when they're working well, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, does anybody else have any questions for Ian or Ryan? And then, as I mentioned, we'll have to do a follow-up call in the fall, maybe once you guys have gotten things
yeah.
up and
This
here.
I was just looking at that hydroponic thing you sent there, Marissa. That's awesome. I hadn't actually considered throwing in or kind of like lacing the concoction with some naturally occurring microbes, but that looks like a good bet. Like around here, we've got a lot of muskeg and organic layers are really thick around here, so that would be pretty easy to get.
Yeah, Mel and her team at Fairbanks Soil and Water have been really developing that curriculum, and then the kids at the school in North Pole have been using it for like quite a few deep water culture systems to pretty good effect. So I would
Nice.
definitely reach out to her if you have any questions.
I know too, I'll just mention they're also trying it with just buying, a little blend of bacteria, microbes and stuff. So you don't have to get soil. You could just get a little blend and sprinkle it in to start up your system. So well, if nobody has any other questions, we'll let you guys run. We really appreciate you taking the time to jump on and share this exciting project with us. I know we're all looking forward to and rooting for you as the summer and season comes up, that everything goes well, and it's really exciting.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for
The
sharing. So nice to see. Super exciting.
Thanks
All
everyone. It
right.
was good to
Thanks.
meet you.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Take care.
Good to
Yeah,
meet
see you guys.
everybody. Sorry I was late. We'll see you next time.
No worries, Duke. You were just a couple minutes late, so you heard most of it.
Cool.
Does anybody have any other updates or things they want to share before we jump off this week's meeting? I know Joe and I are doing our webinar on pests and disease tomorrow. It's part of our Chugach project, so that's open to the members of this group to jump on. That'll be at 3 o'clock.
All right, send me a link, please.
I can do that.
Thank you.
I think that's the only update I got.
All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Take care, everybody. Have a good afternoon.